So today we will be discussing about the continuous distributions, basically the normal distribution part which we have in our inferential statistics part of upgrade session. Now probability distribution. Arun has already covered the discrete distributions. Discrete distributions means those are covered or those are kind of which are generated using discrete random variables. Now continuous distributions are generated using continuous random variables. We have already discussed what are the continuous random variables. Let's say the height of an individual, or let's say height of students in a class, weight of students in a class, couple of other things, mostly everything uh, which do not contain any discrete value can be called as continuous. Now, the similar kind of way means the way we can form a uniform distribution using discrete random variables, we can form a continuous distribution. Generally, the basic distribution for continuous is called a normal distribution. I will share my screen. This is called a normal distribution. Now, this might sound a bit different. I will explain everything to you. Now, we have already seen this. Okay, sorry. This is your mean and this is your standard deviation. Sorry, this is your variance and this is your mean. Now, if you see this is nothing but called a PDF. PDF is called probability distribution function. Now what is a probability distribution function? Probability distribution function is nothing but a mathematical function which gives the probabilities of the occurrences of different possible outcomes for an experiment. If you think about it, basically a place where the majority of the probability of most number of points is there. You can think of it in that way. That is what we can call as probability distribution function. Now, if you see a normal distribution, okay, now there are a couple of distributions which can be called continuous. One is log normal, one is binomial, one is normal distribution, or general way it is called as Gaussian distribution also. Normal distribution is nothing but where the general mean, or what we say, one moment, let me open up a page. Yes. You can call a distribution normalized at mean of mu and variance of sigma square. This is a square. This is how you can call it as normal distribution. Normal distribution it's a simple model of natural behavior. Okay, most of the time we see normal distributions. Okay, height of people, weight of people, population of Earth, or several other occurrences also. Okay, it can be called normal distribution. It can be called Gaussian distributions. It is completely up to you. However you want to call it. It gives you basically a bell curve, which we just saw. It gives you a normal bell curve where your peak point, okay, your peak point is always at the mean, which is nothing but your mu. Okay, now there are 2 to 3 things which we need to keep in mind while discussing or while understanding a normal distribution. Your variance, okay, if your variance is low, okay, if your variance is low, then your distribution's peak will be higher. Something like this. Why? Because most of my points are coming in the exact same way. Now, just to recap things, what is a variance? Variance is nothing but if you subtract every point from your mean, from every frequency from your mean, that will be called as variance. If you just square the number, that will be called as variance. And if you take the square root of it, then it will be nothing but your standard deviation. We have already discussed it. Arun has already covered that. Now coming back to this problem, not a problem, but a statement per se. If your variance value is very low, okay, very low, it means most of your points are surrounded or are nearby to your mean. It means the peak of your distribution would be higher. On the other hand, if the variance is high, okay, then your distribution would be shorter and fatter. So if you see this, if you see something like this image, in first three occurrences, your mean is 0. So you can see the central point for the first one, second one, sorry. For the first one, second one, and third one, it is exactly at the center. So this is your mean, sorry. This is your mean. Now, if you see this, this is your variance. When the variance is 0.2, your graph is peaker, or your distribution curve is peaker. The moment it goes to 1, it becomes shorter and fatter. If you see this, it is becoming shorter and fatter. And the moment it is 5, it has become more shorter and fatter, because the variance, the increase in the variance means the points from mean, or the distance from the mean to every frequency, is high. That is what the increase in the variance is telling you. Now, the last point in which the mean is -2, it means this is your peak at -2, this is -2, and this variance is 0.5. So you can see this is how the distribution, or the normal distribution, has played part. Any questions in this? Anything? Yes, no. Okay. Now, there is one more thing which is called as CDF. When we are discussing PDF, the another form which is very important and we should always consider in mind is called CDF. CDF is nothing but the full form of CDF is cumulative distribution function. Cumulative distribution function tells you it's basically the cumulative sum. That is all it tells you, nothing else. The cumulative sum. So if I just do something like this, okay. Now I will draw my PDF here. This is my PDF. And let's say this is my CDF. Or let me make it even more clear. Let's say this is my CDF. This is PDF and this is CDF. Now your PDF tells you the probability of every point going at a particular instance. Let's say these are all my frequencies. Let's say my mean is nothing but 0.5. Okay, mean is 0.5. And this is my CDF. Let me merge these two. This is 0.5. Now what it tells me is, so 50%, this is your mean. It means the value will be 50%. So what CDF tells you, so if you merge this line, okay, what your CDF tells you is 50% of your points are less than 0.5 and 50% of your points are greater than 0.5. This is a very obvious statement to make. However, when you have a better understanding, okay, something like this, if you see this, so if you see something like this, let's say you have a point attached here, okay, something here. If I do, let's say the point is a 0.7, okay, the point is a 0.7. I can go ahead and say 70% of my points are less than, let's say this is 1.8. 70% of my points are less than 1.8 and 30% of my points are greater than 1.8. So this is what your CDF tells you. It is nothing but your cumulative distribution function. It tells you the cumulative sum. In other ways you need to call about it. It is that only. It plays a very important role because we generally find CDFs and PDFs a lot to get the sense of the data, how it is behaving. Now, the main reason is we are discussing distributions even when it is continuous distribution or discrete distribution, because the data, when we plot the data, it comes in this format. Okay, it literally comes in this format, and the statistical or yes, the statistical and mathematical functions or mathematical methods which we can use to derive the sense of the data, which are already available to us. We just need to learn them. I don't know, Arun, do we have mathematical functions of normal distributions given out?
No, not there. Yeah. Equations, that kind of things are not there.
Okay, equations are not there. Yeah, okay, perfect. If equations are not there, then we can move ahead. Now, a normal distribution, okay, let's say a basic distribution is your normal distribution. We just derived. There is one rule which is very important. I don't know if it is taught or not. Even if it is not, I will tell you. There is a rule called 68, 95, 99.7 rule. It is a very important rule. Okay. It is a very important tool for your CDF. It comes very handy when whenever we are discussing what it is called normal distribution. It is only applicable to your normal distributions. Okay. So the rule is nothing but 68, 95, 99 is 9, 99.7. So if you have a normal distribution, obviously you are going to have your standard deviation, which will be nothing but your sigma. It means your variance will be nothing but sigma square, and you will get your standard deviation as sigma. Your mean is nothing but mu. What this rule tells is the data in between -1 sigma to +1 sigma is 68%. So even though you do not do any kind of calculations, okay, you do not perform any mathematical calculations, you do not code anything, you do not do anything else. If one thing is told out to you that, okay, Shirish, this is a normal distribution, and you know that, okay, if it is a normal distribution, you can find out the mean and you can find out the variance, and you can find out the standard deviation. You can go ahead and say 60% of my data is lying in between -1 sigma and +1 sigma. Let's say my mean is 50 and my standard deviation is 25. So 68% data will lie in between -25 and +25. That is what I mean to say. 68% data without doing any calculations, you can remember it. 95% of your data lies in between -2 sigma and +2 sigma. It means 95% data is lying in between -50 to +50. Okay, the mean cannot be 50. Let's take it as 12. Now -3 sigma to +3 sigma. Your 99.7% data lies. So basically in between -75 to +75, your 99.7% data is lying. Okay, this is a very good analysis and this is a very good rule. The moment you know that the distribution which you're dealing with is a normal distribution, you can go ahead and derive these things. You can go ahead and do that. Anything on this? Any questions in this? Otherwise, we should move ahead. So we have discussed what we have discussed. We have discussed what are the normal distributions. Why should we use them? What do we mean by when the variance is high, when the variance is low? How can it affect my curve? We have discussed that. We have discussed how can we derive the CDF? What is the significance of CDF and why should we use the CDF? We have seen the 68, 95 and 99.7 rule. Now there are two more terms. I don't know if it is taught or not. If it is not taught, then let's not cover it. There is one more thing called standard normal variate, means standardization in the other terms. If we say it is called standardization. Okay. It is called standardization. Standardization is nothing but, sorry. Again, we are referring to the normal distribution. Normal distribution is normalized at mean of mu and variance of sigma square. Okay, variance of sigma square. Now, standardization is a very good concept. It makes things even easier for you when you know that your distribution is a normal distribution. What standardization does is it takes your normal distribution. Okay, let's say you have a normal distribution which has the mean of, let's say, 2.5 and variance of 7. Standardization, okay, this is S. Standardization will take this normal distribution and will make it to mean of 0 and variance of 1. That is called the standardization. Now, it is a very good concept because the moment you know that, okay, your standard deviation is nothing but 1 and your variance is 1, it means your standard deviation is also going to be 1 only. So it makes things very easier for you for the analysis or the calculation part. Now, how do we derive this? How do we approach from this to this? It's a very simple concept. The notation for standard normal variate is Z, okay, normalized at 0, 1. Now, the concept is very easy. You can code it if you want in Python. Obviously, you will be doing it. We are already aware. Okay, let's say you have a continuous random variable, which is nothing but x, which is normalized at which is normalized at mean of mu and variance of sigma square. Now, the observations from my x are x1, x2 up to, let's say, x50. Okay. Now this is my problem. This is where my problem statement starts. I have my continuous random variable, which is x, and it is normalized at mean of mu and variance of sigma square. The observations from capital X are nothing but x1, x2 up to 50. Now the way standardization is working out for me, I will take xi. Okay. Okay, xi means x1, x2, x3 up to x50. I will subtract the mean from it, and I will divide it by the standard deviation. And it will be nothing but the updated xi dash. Let's call it xi dash, the updated xi. I will do it for every where I is going from 1 to 50. If I perform this, okay, if I perform this operation in Python, or let's say even on the notebook, I will get all 50 observations in such a way that my capital X will get normalized at mean of 0 and standard deviation at 1. So this is the formula for you. This is the formula for you. Now, how can we achieve it in Python? Let's say we discussed Panda series yesterday. Okay, let's say you have a Panda series which contains 50 float observations or integer observations. Okay, what you will find the mean of it. You can easily find the mean using NumPy, or yes, using NumPy you can find the mean. Using NumPy you can find the standard deviation. What you can do, you can go ahead and simply run a loop if you want, or whatever you want to do, you can do that. You can append the list, you can run a loop, you can do this operation for every occurrence in the series, and you can create another list, and then you can find the mean of that new updated list and the standard deviation. You will find this answer. Sorry. You will find this answer. Now this is called the standard normal variate. Doing this, okay, doing this will make things even more easier for you. Earlier we were doing -1 sigma and +1 sigma, -2 sigma, +2 sigma, -3 sigma, +2 sigma for a 68, 95 and 99.7 rule. Now doing this, I can surely say, okay, 68% is lying in between -1 sigma, -1 and +1, because my sigma value is going to be 1 only. Okay, it is nothing but 68%. -2 + 2, 95%. -3 to +3, 99.7%. So this is, it makes things even more easier for you. Any questions in this? Any questions? Or if you're not able to understand it, yes, no, maybe shut up.
Yeah, one more thing I would like to add here. Basically, why we go for normalization, one particular reason is when we are doing different data sets from different sources and all, when we do this normalization, we will have be bringing all those different data sets to a common reference point, so that you can directly compare those between one to one. And one second point is when we are trying to, like in the olden days when computers were not so popular, when we want to do some statistics, it was difficult to have this normal find the normal distribution values corresponding to different mean and standard deviation or variance. So what they used to do is once they normalize, you will map everything to one standard normal distribution with mean 0 and variance 1. So you just need to maintain the values corresponding to values and the particular probability values corresponding to a single normal distribution. So any normal distribution that you have, you can actually standardize it and then get your values from a single table. So like these 2-3 reasons are the reasons why this approach using standardization is very popular when we see most of the problems in statistics.
Yes, thank you, Arun. Now, there is one more concept, okay, which is called sampling distribution and central limit theorem. But prior to that, anyone has any questions? Okay, if not, then I will continue. Sampling distribution and does not allow me to write that much. Central limit. So now we will discuss what is called sampling distribution. Then we will move ourselves to central limit theorem. And then we will try to relate the concept of standardization to central limit theorem. That is how, and we will probably that will be all we will discuss today. Maybe if time or if anyone does not get bored, then we will continue. Now let's say we have a distribution. We do not know whether it is a normal distribution or not. Okay, we do not know what kind of distribution it is. Okay, let's say that you have anything. Let's say you have a continuous random variable which is x. You have a continuous random variable which is x. Let's take 2 samples from it. Okay, let's take 2 samples from it. Completely random samples. One S1, one S2. Okay, let's take 2 samples and the size, let's say 30 for both of them. Size is 30. Okay, now obviously this is your population. The mean for this is mu. For this S1, the sample mean will be nothing but x1 bar. For this, let's call it x2 bar. Now let's take m samples. Okay, m times. Okay, let's take it m times. It means it is then the last one which I will be taking, it will be called XSM, and it is going to be XM for me. Okay, any questions in this? Anything? Is it clear? This is nothing but your sample mean. These are your sample means. These are your samples, and this is your population. Now I got x1 bar, okay, x2 bar, x3 bar up to xm bar. This is nothing but, okay, this is nothing but your sample mean of sample distribution. These are nothing but your mean of sample distributions. If you think about it, these mean will also follow some kind of distributions. They will also have some kind of PDF since they are also continuous. Okay, I will reiterate everything. I had a continuous random variable called x. I took S1 to SM, okay, m samples, each of size 30, and then I took the mean of every sample, x1 bar, x2 bar, xm bar, and then now I took all these sample means. I wrote it here. Now we know that the distribution, okay, the sample means will also follow some kind of a distribution. Let's call it xi bar, maybe not. Let's call it xi bar. Now let's move ourselves to central limit theorem. Central limit theorem says if my random variable, okay, sorry, this is nothing but your kind of called sampling distributions. Okay, this is called your sampling distribution. Okay, you can call that as sampling distribution. Now what your central limit theorem says, if my random variable x, okay, if my random variable x has finite population mean, okay, this is a condition, okay, this is a very big condition. If finite mean and finite variance, which is sigma square, okay, then the below or the whatever I'm going to write is going to be a Gaussian only. Now what we wrote earlier, S1, S2, S3, SM, X1 bar, sorry, X2 bar, X3 bar, XM bar. These are your sample means. Now the distribution of xi is, okay, this is one. The distribution of xi will always follow the Gaussian distribution, which will be normalized at xi bar. This is your central limit theorem. Xi will be normalized at mean of mu, the population mean of mu, and variance of this as n tends to infinity. And in the current situation, we took n as 30. This is your central limit theorem. Now let me summarize it for you. We took m samples, okay? We took m samples of size 30 from a population called X, where the population mean was mu. We took the sample means, which are xi, x1 bar, x2 bar, x3 bar, xm bar, and these these sample means will also have some kind of a distribution. Now what central limit theorem says, if my if my continuous random variable has finite mean and finite variance, then the distribution for sample mean will be normalized at the mean of mu and the variance of, the standard deviation of sigma square by n, where n tends to infinity, and in the current situation we have taken n as 30. Any questions on that? Anything? I will explain it again. Let me make it even more clear. Central limit theorem states that irrespective of the underlying distribution of a population, okay, with a mean mu and standard deviation of sigma, if you take a number of samples of size n from the population and then let's say you take the sample means, then the sample mean, okay, or what we say, yes, the distribution of sample means will follow the normal distribution at mean of mu and standard deviation of sigma by n. Okay, sigma square by under root sigma square by n. Yes, sigma square by n. Sorry. Yes, sigma square by n. This is your variance, and if you convert it into standard deviation, it will be sigma by under root n. So it's up to you, whatever you call it, whether you compute the variance or whether you compute the standard deviation. Any questions on this? Because this is the last topic which we are discussing today. Yes, means is it clear with everyone? I don't know. Okay, yes, Gaurav, tell me. Gaurav, you can unmute yourself.
Hello? Hello? Hello?
Okay, I cannot hear you if you are speaking anything.
Gaurav, you can be a bit more louder.
Hello?
Yes, now it is audible. Perfect.
Sir, can you give an example in Hindi
Achha.
for better clarity?
हाँ, so basically central limit theorem ये बोलता है कि let's say you have a distribution or let's say you have a continuous random variable जो कि x है, ठीक है? Now,
okay, sir.
You do not know उसका underlying distribution क्या है. It can be any distribution. Log normal हो सकता है, Pareto distribution हो सकता है, binomial हो सकता है, Bernoulli हो सकता है, बहुत सारे distributions होते हैं, कोई भी हो सकता है. Central limit theorem क्या बोलता है कि अगर आप m samples लो, ठीक है, if you take m samples of any continuous random variable, क्योंकि हमने यहाँ पे किया, हमने यहाँ पर x के 30 सैंपल्स m सैंपल्स लिए S1 से लेकर Sm तक, ठीक है, S1, S2, S3 वगैरह 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 वगैरह. साइज के लिए हमने हर सैंपल का 30 एंड फिर इन 30 का हमने मीन निकाला एंड वी कॉल इट xi, x1 बार, x2 बार, xm बार, दैट वे. यहाँ तक क्लियर है क्या?
ओके सर, क्लियर है सर यहाँ पे.
हाँ, परफेक्ट. नाउ वी नो दैट ओके दिस x वाज फॉलोइंग सम डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन, ये x कोई डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन फॉलो कर रहा था एंड हमने इसके सैंपल्स निकाले, सैंपल्स के मीन निकाले. दिस मीन विल आल्सो फॉलो सम काइंड ऑफ डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन. Now central limit theorem says that if you take the samples like this and if you take the mean of those samples like this, then these means will follow the normal distribution at mean mu and variance of sigma square by n. That's all it says.
Okay, sir. The total outcome is equal to mu square upon n.
Nice. This is mu. Sorry. There it is. Where is the marker? This is, let me write it on another page. So your xi, ठीक है? Xi क्या है अपना? That is your mean, sample mean. It is normalized at mean of mu, comma, variance of sigma square by n.
And
that's all. And in our case, we have taken n is equals to 30 because we took m samples of 30 size here.
n is the range.
N is the number of frequency. Range is not the good word. Frequency is number of frequencies.
And the capital N
Capital N means
normalization.
Normalization, correct.
Okay, sir.
Here you can assume like there is the population consists of maybe 10,000 samples. So you are basically taking 30 samples out of that at a time. Like that, you are taking samples in m different ways. Like out of a population of 10,000 members, you are taking 30 samples in m different ways. So you get say a sample size of m, with each sample having n elements, which is a small n, which is 30 in this case.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Now it is nothing but a trick to convert any kind of underlying distribution into a normal distribution, because using a normal distribution, we can convert this mean and standard deviation to 0 and 1 using the standardization technique which we just discussed. And the moment we have it 0 and 1, we can use our CDF rule, which is 68, 95 and 99.7. So most of the techniques, most of the techniques which are there in statistics are there to convert everything into a normal distribution. That is all. Other than that, Arun, tell me a topic. I have not started statistics. Sorry.
Okay, so basically, one more thing I would like to add to what Shirish just now told. Basically, given that a sampling distribution in the n tends to infinity or n greater than 30 case follows the normal distribution with the mean of mu and variance sigma square by n, which is also called standard error. That sigma square by n factor is called standard error. So basically, what it allows us to do is, given a population parameter like a mu and sigma, it will help us to estimate what will be with the mu, mean and standard deviation or variance of a particular sample of that. Similarly, other way around also, given a sample, once I find the mean and the variance of that, with that I can estimate the actual population mean and standard deviation. So basically both these things, that is given a sample trying to estimate the population parameter and given a population predicting the samples statistics, that both these things we will be covering in our subsequent sessions, and both these form the main part of our inferential statistics. One is called estimation, that is given a sample we are trying to predict the population, and other is called hypothesis. So there we will be given some parameters about population, so we will try to predict whether for a sample it is valid, whether it is from that population. So that two ways in which you will try to interpret this thing, that is from sample to population or from population to sample. That two ways form the basis of all the problems that we will try to solve as part of our inferential statistics.
Yes. Now, Arun, tell me a topic.
Yeah, maybe I think we can. Okay,
I think
two things.
Do we have skewness? Do we have skewness?
No, skewness curves are not there. Related to this, I will like to add 2-3 points.
Perfect. I will stop sharing my screen.
Not you can keep sharing. So when I tell something, some example comes to your mind, you can write it down there.
Okay.
So 2-3 points to note here is, first thing is, what is the conditions under which I can apply central limit theorem to a given sample. So as Shirish told, n tends to infinity is the problem statement, but provided n is sufficiently large, I can approximate that to a use the central limit theorem. So n for that case is mostly taken as 30. So if I have a sample size of greater than 30, then I can assume that the sampling distribution is normal, irrespective of what is the distribution followed by the actual population. The population, as Shirish told, can be anything, binomial, normal, Pareto, Cauchy, whatever it is. The sampling distribution can be assumed to be normal if the number of samples taken is greater than 30. That is the first point. So in that case, as we already told, the mu we can estimate as for the population and sample can be assumed to be same, and the variance can be assumed to be related by this sigma square by n. So second point is, suppose I take less than 30 samples from a normal population. So I take like 10 samples from a normal population. So even in that case, I can apply the central limit theorem, because even though I am having less number of samples, since my population is normal, I can assume that my the sample also will be mostly normal, and that also will be holding in most of the cases. And now the third point is, okay, for any other cases, that is only case remaining is the number of samples I am taking is less than 30 and my population is not following a normal distribution. It is following some other distribution like Pareto or binomial. We cannot consider there, because even binomial is like a limiting case for like normal distribution is like a limiting case for binomial. So even binomial will cover. So provided that my population is following some other distribution like Cauchy or some things like that, and my sample size is less than 30. So in that case, I cannot use this direct normal equation. So in that case, I have to go for some other sampling distributions. So that is what is called a student's T distribution. So T distribution. So T distribution is something that is closely related to how we try to interpret with normal distribution. So when we go ahead with our inferential statistics, these two only like we will be using throughout. Either this normal distribution denoted as n mu sigma, or T statistics, which is denoted by the number of degrees of freedom. So basically that and all, when we come to examples, it will be more clear to you. So T statistics also will be like similar to, the shape will be a bell curve, similar to normal curve. But the difference is that if you compare for 1-to-1, it will have more samples towards the tails. That is, the tails will be more wider compared to a normal distribution. So we will come to more details of that and all when we try to solve problems. Shirish, you want to add something to T distribution?
No, I think we will cover it as when the time comes. I think you have covered it the most. T distribution, see, T distribution is, it basically looks completely like your normal distribution. Just a couple of differences.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello, sir. Sorry to interrupt you.
No issues, no issues. You ask here.
Sir, I don't know, sir, from where to start learning statistics for data science. Like in terms of programming, we all know that we learn Python first.
I know. I think the best thing is you directly go with our course.
In terms of coming with the statistics, please provide me the path how to learn statistics for data science.
No, actually our course, it is actually like very curated, except for some few points that I feel like are missing. That things once you try Google and all, you will easily get. But most of the things you can follow our syllabus as a guideline in learning statistics. Most of the parts, like we have, except for maybe probability part and like want to go to hypothesis testing, get to know the standard error part. You may have to refer some more additional material to get an actual idea of what they actually mean by that. So other than that, our material is, you can take as a order in which you would like to learn. So that is like will give you a good path.
Okay, sir.
I will say whatever is given out to us looks completely fine. Other than that, if you want to explore the topics which are not covered out very well, there is a 12 hours course available on YouTube. YouTube, just 1 second. Let me search and share it with you. But start only after completing our statistics course, not before that.
After completing the module of statistics in our course.
Yes, if you see this, it's a 12 hours of course. Okay, you can go ahead and just write stats. You can just write stats great learning on YouTube and you will find this 12 hours of course. It's a wonderful course. I have completed it. It gives you so many things to learn, to achieve. Okay, it is very good. Basically, you can complete this, but you will be able to understand whatever he is saying only after completing whatever is completed in our module, because there are so many advanced topics which he has covered which are not yet there, because those are corely used in machine learning and core data science, like Chebyshev's inequality, QQ plots, all those things. Those are not covered in this. Those are not covered in our module. So whatever you read or whatever you learn from the upgrade module, read or learn only those things from this. That's all I will say. It's a wonderful. So out of those 12 hours, only 2 to 3 hours are useful for you. That's all I will say. After that, I think all rest all seems good. If you do not, I have uploaded the Govi, sorry, not Govi, 365 data science courses. Those are also available in the link. You can also find those. That
and once you complete our module, if you want to dig a little further, I would suggest in Upgrade site itself, there is some free course called
right. Sorry,
hypothesis testing as well as inferential statistics. So both those you can try after completing our course, because that will also take similar kind of time. And there is actually overlap between content. So basically, you can use that as a revision, and it covers some additional topics also. So that you can use as a further things to like strengthen your concepts.